What's up, everyone? Kevin Carrillo here, and welcome to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast. My guest today is Dr. Zac Hildenbrand, who is the Chief Technical Officer of Inform Environmental. Dr. Zac Hildenbrand, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining the Cannabinoid Connect podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dive into things, a mutual friend told me that you're a scratch golfer. Is that true?
Many moons ago, I was pretty decent at the game. That's what brought me to the United States, is to play collegiate golf. Science got in the way and working got in the way, so I don't play much golf anymore. So I don't really know how good I am, but I try to get out once a couple times a year.
Nice. Fellow golfer here as well. I played since I was 9, but definitely didn't hit that scratch level. So if I shoot under 90, then I'm happy. So.
Okay. Yeah. No. At the height of my powers, I guess you'd say I got to about a +4 handicap.
That's good. Wow. That's good golfing right there. So maybe one day if you're in Dallas, we can get together and play.
Okay. I love that.
So, hey, let's get started. We'll talk about first, obviously, because of the government's restrictions in researching cannabis, specifically because it's listed as a Schedule 1 narcotic. This is limited the number of peer review studies that are out there. A lot of the material that we could learn about the various cannabinoids within the plant. So why don't you talk about your background, exactly what you do? You can tell your audience, our audience here, so that they have an idea of who you are and what you're working on.
Sure. So I'm classically trained, I guess you would say, as a cancer biochemist. I worked on the structure and function of proteins involved in hormone-dependent signaling. I then did a postdoctoral fellowship at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, looking at treatment for chronic myeloid leukemia. And I've really based my entire scientific career looking at unconventional fields of research, those that are both contentious and controversial. And so I got into the hemp and cannabis space in 2015 because I saw it as kind of the new frontier of medicine. I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time. We had medical cannabis at the time, but coincidentally, there was no testing requirements. So, think of it as, you're going into Walgreens and you're looking for your blood pressure medicine, but there's no QA/QC testing to tell you whether or not that's the medicine you should be taking. So to be giving people cannabis in the context of medicine without characterizing the medicinal elements and also characterizing, are there any potential contaminants in this, seemed really irresponsible. So I was a part of a group called C4 Laboratories. We opened up a laboratory, which is still operational in Mesa. And then I began to focus more heavily on the research side of things as part of a group founded Zed Therapeutics. We have a R&D research facility in Cheshire, Oregon, where we're focused on making novel strains of hemp for specific applications, and then also trying to discover novel compounds. Hemp and cannabis is more or less like opium was in the 1900s, where they recently, back then, they discovered hundreds of natural products, many of which have become the basis for medicines of today. And so I see still the same opportunity in the cannabis and hemp space. And the pharmaceutical industry certainly lobbies very hard against that because it's taking a chunk out of business, because obviously cannabinoids are far healthier for you than opioids. But it won't take very long. I mean, if we see federal legislation passed that legalizes and deschedulizes cannabis and hemp, then I think you're going to see the pharmaceutical industry jump in with billions of dollars and do all this exploratory research that they would like to have been doing 20 years ago.
Right. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned the fact that it's important for us to characterize the various cannabinoids within the plant, right? Because
Yep.
it seems like where we've kind of gone now is there's this kind of this bro science out there where
Absolutely.
they're characterizing this plant as either like a sativa or an indica dominant. And my question is, okay, so apps like, or dispensaries even, where they're describing this different flower, or there's apps like Leafly, how accurate are those descriptions, and do they even know what type of strain and what molecules and what benefits are even within those? Are they guessing? Is it
No, I mean,
bullshit? Is it?
without the testing data, they're absolutely shooting in the dark. And what's more confounding is the fact that you could say, okay, this is Blue Dream, and this Blue Dream was tested by so-and-so person in Washington. It has all of these constituents, these cannabinoids, these terpenes. So clearly Blue Dream is something that will put you to sleep and will help you sleep better, help with inflammation. Well, the problem is someone could have taken a clone of a different plant that was lesser known and not as hot a commodity, and just called it Blue Dream. And now they're growing that strain out, calling it Blue Dream, and then passing it on, saying that it has the same physiological effects on the body. So without the testing data, you're absolutely shooting in the dark, irrespective of whether it's sativa, indica, a hybrid background. I mean, quite frankly, all of these strains out there are some degree of hybridization. So to see a true landrace strain that is, from this particular region and has been maintained as it once was, those are very, very hard to find. There's so much mixing and matching, because that's part of cannabis breeding that makes it so fun, is you can take, maybe characteristics you see in this plant and then try to breed those into another plant with characteristics you also like, and hopefully can get kind of the best of both worlds. But without the testing data, there's absolutely no way to see how that medicine should be utilized. And unfortunately, you're relying on bud tenders, which are certainly doing their best at trying to steer you in the right direction. But the last thing anyone wants is to have something that has been characterized as an indica and is supposed to help you sleep. You go in, and then it has the invigorating terpenes that's going to keep you up at night. I mean, the last thing that anyone wants to do is be wired all night when all they want to do is sleep. And vice versa. Let's say you want to take something for creativity to help invigorate you, maybe for work, and then you take something and it has a sedative effect, and then you're done for the day. So those type of things have really hurt the industry up until this date.
Right. And I mean, you got to admit though, I mean, some of those apps and the dispensers, how they write those descriptions, those copywriters are incredible. I mean, the language that they use, it's almost like you want to eat it. There's one here that I'll read. Provides a sweet and earthy flavor. GMO cookies is celebrated for its ability to relieve pain without putting you to bed in the process. So
yeah. So again, that's marketing, and a lot of cannabis, in addition to the bro science that you alluded to, a lot of cannabis and hemp right now is marketing. There's not nearly as much science as there should be. So I think a prudent consumer would like to know exactly what's going into their body, and they can do the research. The research is available online to show which terpenes will elicit which effects. And so you could then use that and say, well, okay, I need something that's going to put me to sleep. I need a high THC strain with the terpenes, lanolol, and beta-myrcene, sort of thing. And then make those decisions. And you shouldn't go in saying, I want this strain. I want a strain that has these components to it.
That's right. It's almost like reverse engineering the whole process.
Precisely.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of this new frontier of medicine that you've been talking about, and so let's dive into the known cannabinoids at this point in your research, and what are those health and wellness and medical benefits that you're seeing?
So when I got into this space in 2015, obviously everyone was well aware of what THC was and what THC did. Gave you that kind of sedated, stony feeling. And then more recently, we've come into the CBD era, which now CBD is in everything. CBD popcorn, hummus, drinks. And CBD has garnered the most notoriety as an anticonvulsant agent, particularly in epileptic children. And I've seen it work insanely effectively, where children that are having thousands of epileptic seizures a day can have their epilepsies arrested immediately within seconds of taking CBD. So in addition to those two major cannabinoids, you've got over 100 ancillary molecules. And each individual cannabinoid also has what's called a carboxylic precursor. So when the plant produces, for example, you see delta-9 THC, well, the plant is actually producing THCA, and then it's not until you heat that product up, i.e. smoking the flower, that carbon dioxide is released, and now you convert THCA to THC, CBDA to CBD, CBCA to CBC, and so on and so forth. So there are molecules in cannabis. I mean, it's incredible. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife where you've got molecules that can help with pain, inflammation. You can help regulate gastrointestinal issues. They've been shown to be effective in murine models against various forms of cancer. You've got appetite stimulants, appetite suppressants. You've got metabolic stimulants, for example, like THCV, which has a very similar chemical structure to THC. Doesn't give you a psychotropic high feeling, but it actually has been shown to help people metabolize fats better. So obviously that would be fantastic if we could take something from cannabis and make it into like the next hydroxycut or a dietary supplement that helps people regulate their weight better. So that's just the cannabinoids. And then the other classes of molecules, for example, you have the terpenes. These are primarily known as the aroma elements. And there are over 30,000 terpenes in the natural world. They're found in pine needles, they're found in lemons, they're found in lavender. Well, cannabis and hemp are kind of like a fruit salad, whereas you can get 40, 50 major terpenes in one strain, and they have sedative effects. Some of them help you regulate blood glucose. A lot of them are anti-inflammatories, antibacterial agents, anti-parasitic agents. So, I mean, there's a little bit of something for everyone here. The research that I'm embarking on currently and in collaboration with the University of Texas at Arlington, we're looking at the class of flavonoids. So these are synonymous. You hear flavonoids as antioxidants. These are really rich in blueberries, stone fruits, fruits and vegetables. While cannabis and hemp are really rich in some of these, particularly the anthocyanins, which coincidentally give blueberries their blue appearance. So you may have seen some of these blue, purplish strains out there. That's because of the anthocyanins, and they're very, very powerful antioxidants. So we're really just scratching the surface. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, the reason we're not further along here is not because we don't have the expertise. It's not because we don't have the instrumentation. It's because we've been hamstrung because it's a Schedule I drug. But fortunately, hemp has given us the opportunity to circumvent the restrictions on cannabis research, because essentially we're making such high quality hemp now. It's just cannabis without THC. It has all the other active constituents. So, I mean, all we're missing is that one component, and it's allowing the research to evolve at a much more rapid rate.
Right. I think that's an important distinction, I think, for the audience, is that, you know, I even Googled it before, like the way that they're describing hemp versus cannabis is what you said, that THC level percentage, right? And it's of course it's below 0.3 was what can constitute a hemp plant.
Exactly. So hemp is cannabis, just without THC in it. That's it. It has all the major components. It's the same genetic. And so what's been a little bit more challenging as of late, it's really taken a huge toll in the hemp industry, is what the classification threshold was 0.3% THC delta 9. That was the final component that you get after combustion. Well, the USDA back in October 31st of 2019, they changed the restriction to 0.3 delta 9 plus its precursor THCA. And hemp that you'll see out on the market, for example, some of the hemp that we were working on with my friends Chris West and Adam Shocks, we had 28% CBD hemp, and it had below 0.3 delta 9 THC, which was great. But the plant naturally produces THCA. It has very small amounts of delta 9, but a notable amount of THCA. So all of a sudden, with those new USDA regs, we were above that threshold, and we were no longer cultivating and studying hemp. We were looking at cannabis at that point. So basically what that's forced is that the maximum hemp will produce in terms of CBD, while maintaining under that total THC threshold of 0.3, is about 15%. And there's so many people in the industry right now which are buying seeds online that are saying, okay, you're getting 20% CBD hemp. It's going to be THC compliant. It's going to be 99.99% feminized. And these people grow it, and half of the plants are male, which is unfavorable. The THC content is way higher than you think it should be, and the CBD content is way lower. And so now it's not just a matter of, oh, your THC content was too high, you got to destroy the crop. There's actually jail time you're looking at now. And so people it's kind of been a green rush where they've invested, in a rapid rate, millions of dollars into this hemp thing because CBD has been such a phenomenon. And there's been a lot of heartache and bloodshed because of the difficulties of cultivating it on a mass industrial scale.
Right. And that it comes with, like, your point, there is some fraud out there. There's people that are just willy-nilly selling these seeds out there that aren't really following those regulations, and ultimately farmers are the ones that are losing out at the end.
Yeah, because the people selling seeds, they have no liability. They said, well, we got these from a reliable source. Here they are. And we're not liable if the stuff comes up hot because that's on you. You probably added too many nutrients, you hit it with the wrong light, poor water, whatever it may be. The environmental conditions triggered it to produce more THC, which is BS, quite frankly. The genetics have a lot to do with it, but certainly the environmental aspects are important. But you're starting with bad seeds, you're not going to get premium product, irrespective of how you treat the plants.
Right. Let's talk about global trends, right? So obviously we all both understand Schedule 1 has been a hamstring. It's really held back research and learning of the plant. But in other places, Europe, for example, do you see maybe that they're more ahead in research, or are they gravitating to a particular cannabinoid that we are not in this country?
So there's certainly flavors of the week. In the last year, we went from, obviously being inundated with CBD, and then someone came out with a high CBG strain, and the marketing was, if you love CBD, you'll love this new CBG. And it's like, no, it doesn't even do the exact same thing. CBD helps with pain. It's an anti-inflammatory. CBG helps you with gastrointestinal issues and does not help with pain. So they're totally separate things. So I think as new molecules are discovered, there's going to be people trying to isolate and selectively breed higher levels into those plants. And then there's going to be a new flavor of the month. I know a lot of people are focused on CBDV and THCV because they're unique. The plant produces less than 1% of them. But if we could get that to maybe 5 or 10%, then you got something commercially viable. And those molecules, they do certain things, like I mentioned to you before. THCV is a metabolic stimulant. So if someone could take a plant that historically produces less than 1% THCV and now they've got a 10% THCV plant, well, then they've got a pretty interesting market opportunity. So I think people are trying to differentiate themselves through selective breeding projects. It's a really, really difficult thing to do. And the best thing that we ever did at Zed Therapeutics was buy our own HPLC. So this is the instrument that is used to characterize the cannabinoids. So my colleague, who more or less, these guys are the forefathers of CBD medicine, Adam Jock and Chris West, they've been in this space for 10 plus years. And how they were historically doing it is they would grow out plants, they'd select some that look interesting, they'd get some testing data, they'd wait 2 weeks to get that data, and then they would isolate, plants based on that information. And it's an incredibly slow and arduous process. Well, we're analyzing plants and getting data in 10 minutes on the spot. So we were screening through thousands of plants every day, isolating the good ones, culling the bad ones that were uninteresting, and our development just went through the roof. So, anyone in this space now who's looking to create novel genetics, they have to have all the testing in-house. It's really the only way to do it.
And is that HPLC, is that the same, I guess it's a type of process, right? Or is it technology, or is it both?
No, it's a technology. So basically, you're separating out the cannabinoids based on their binding to a hydrophobic column. And I won't go through a lot of the technical jargon here, but with an HPLC, basically you take your flower, you're going to solubilize it in methanol, you're going to filter it, you put it into your HPLC. In 10 minutes, it's going to separate out the major 15 cannabinoids and very nicely. So you're able to identify novel strains relatively quickly. And these instruments are, they're large investments. They can be $75,000, but when you're going to a commercial lab and you're paying $80 and you're waiting 2 weeks to get that data, well, you're going to pay for your instrument very quickly if you're looking to go through thousands of plants.
Right. No, I appreciate that explanation. I've heard that acronym quite a bit, but
Yeah,
but
it stands
you
for high performance liquid chromatography.
got you. Okay, so you mentioned 15 cannabinoids that we kind of know about. We're familiar with at this point, but there are a total of 140 in the
Yeah.
plant. Is that correct?
Yeah, have been detected. They're at very low infinitesimal levels that you're not going to see. And the reason why we're only detecting 15 in laboratories today is because we just don't have commercially available reference standards. So, for example, when you're looking at an HPLC chromatogram, you're looking at cannabinoids being representative of UV absorption. And every time a cannabinoid is detected, i.e., UV is absorbed, there's a little peak. And so right now we know the position of 15 peaks, if you will. Well, there's other peaks that pop up, but we don't have commercial standards to vet, to kind of reference to what those may be. Just in our work with the HPLC alone, I mean, we identified 10 that we were seeing on a regular basis. We had no idea what they were because the commercial standards weren't available. So still a lot of work to be done there. But yes, there's over 100 out there in the natural world. There's probably more. But we just haven't gotten around to having those available to test on a wide set scale.
Sure. I mean, that's exciting. That's the future. I mean, there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
potential, right?
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the future of the biopharmaceutical industry. And like I said, I think they're going to put billions of dollars into this. They're just going to discover a handful of new drugs for a wide array of conditions. Not to mention, I mean, they might have a new, safer alternative to opioids that doesn't come with the stigma. I mean, for some strange reason, we feel far more comfortable taking a pill that came from a pharmaceutical industry than we do from a plant that was grown under immense care.
Right.
And that may never change. But what you can have is maybe have the biopharmaceutical industry take some of those molecules from the plant and make them a safer version than the codeines and the opioids that we're seeing, widely used today.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you're collaborating with UTA, and so you want to talk about some exciting new projects that you're working on at this point?
Right. So we're very fortunate there. I'm working with a good colleague and friend of mine, Dr. Kevin Shug, and he has access to what's called the Shimatsu Center for Advanced Analytical Chemistry. And it's the acronym for that is SCAC, which means nothing. But what is interesting is that they have probably $20 million worth of instrumentation there. And Kevin's a world-renowned analytical chemist, so where he has a great relationship with the Shimatsu Corporation, and they give him instruments that nobody else has in his field to play around with, to optimize, and to build applications for. So these instruments are incredibly sensitive. I mean, you're talking about in some cases being a million-fold more sensitive than something that would be commercially available. So what we're trying to do is effectively, one project we're working on is we have 130 new strains of hemp that were created at the farm at Zed Therapeutics facility that I was a part of. We're taking those strains into the laboratory under the guidance of Kevin, a world-renowned analytical chemist, and we're using these amazing instruments. And one thing we're trying to do first is, sure, we're looking at new cannabinoids, we're looking at new terpenes, but we're also characterizing some of these other classes like the flavonoids, the anthocyanins. And fortunately, if we really strike gold, maybe we'll find something that no one has ever seen before. And then the goal then would be, okay, once we found something new, let's figure out what that new molecule does through what's called gene expression analyses, which I did extensively with mice. And then once you know, okay, what it is, what it does, then you can maybe figure out, okay, can we make a derivative of this to make it more efficient? Or is it just good as is? Or in the very least, we identified molecule X from strain Y, so let's focus on really pushing the limit and having strain Y produce 100 times more of that strain through 100 times more of that compound through selective breeding.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's exciting stuff that you're working on for sure.
Thank you.
So I guess, I mean, last question would be, what does the future look like as we continue on this path of the new frontier of medicine? What are you most excited about?
Well, I'm most excited about, I really do think that there are going to be a number of restrictions being removed here for political reasons. It depends on obviously who we get as president in 2020. I think Donald Trump is probably more favorable to decriminalizing and legalizing cannabis just because he loves the tax revenue. Joe Biden has had more of an adverse opinion of cannabis. But I think there's going to be more opportunities for research, and with that, the discovery of new medicines. I mean, unfortunately, what's happening in the space is because of this green rush, there's been a crash, and I mean, particularly in hemp. So you're going to see a mass consolidation of hemp companies. People like Charlotte's Web, people like Tilray, they're going to get big. They're going to buy up a lot of assets, and my hope is that they put a lot of those resources into research and development, discover new things that can help people, because I'm sick and tired of seeing, CBD and hummus and yogurt and all of this. I mean, CBD is a medicine for some people. It's not just some novelty item, that's the flavor of the month. I mean, having CBD in a bath bomb where that CBD can't penetrate into your skin does no good, but they're able to sell those for $20 a piece. I'd much rather those resources put towards research that can help people with new medicines.
I've used the bath bombs. Is that I thought I felt something. Is it all placebo effect?
That would have been placebo effect, yeah. So in order for it to transfer through your membrane, it would have had to been solubilized in a liposome, which is easy to do, but that probably wasn't the case. It was probably a CBD isolate that was just put into soap, and they put it in there, and it's a marketing gimmick. I mean, that's so much of what this industry is. And I mean, it's kind of funny, like the first Science of Cannabis conference I went to was in Phoenix, Arizona, and it was in the parking lot of a strip club. So we had scantily clad
legit
draped over, I think might have been a Ferrari. And here we are selling vape pens and all of this jazz. There was no science there. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. That's recreational cannabis, and that's certainly a place for that. I don't disparage people for being in that space, but yeah, it's pretty hard for ourselves to take ourselves seriously.
Legitimize it.
We're in the parking lot of a strip club trying to talk about new medicine here. It was just, I'll laugh about that for the rest of my time, because I think I went inside the strip club and paid $25 for a bottle of water.
Yeah, they usually upcharge the drinks. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I got had by the bath bomb, but I didn't pay $20, so I don't feel as bad. But now I know, so that's good.
Well, you probably got clean in the very least, so that's one of the goals, obviously, with those things.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Zac Hildenbrand, I think we're up at time here, but before you go, do you want to let the audience know where they can find some of your research, or just kind of go online, maybe a website that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm readily available on LinkedIn, just under my name, Zac Hildenbrand. We post all of our recent publications. And if they want to go to informenvironmental.com, that's my consulting company. We publish a lot of the research there too. So, I mean, I'm always available, happy to answer any questions that people may have. I mean, because there's a lot of bro science, a lot of misinformation out there. So I'm happy to steer people in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, keep blazing the trails in your research. We appreciate what you're doing for everyone in the industry. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Bye.
Take care.